When I saw the first few trailers, I honestly didn't know what to make of Stranger of Paradise. I do expect and enjoy a certain level of charm and cheese from this series, and with this being part spin-off, part retelling of sorts of the original game, I was interested in how it would all play out. Along with this, the game was being made by Team Ninja, best known for Ninja Gaiden and the Nioh games. Both I've enjoyed. At the same time, the gameplay seemed highly inspired by the Souls series. I can confidently say that after playing this game and taking my time for about 15 hours, I am having a great experience. Stranger of Paradise is the type of game that slowly hooks you with both its story and most importantly, gameplay. The narrative does take a few hours before it really settles into a nice flow, but once it started to get going and you were on your quest, I was invested. The gameplay is pretty great as it provides a lot of addictive hooks through consistently earning new loot and the ever-growing class system. You'll find yourself discovering new favorites and experimenting with different playstyles. While I haven't beaten the game yet, I'm having an absolute blast with it. Let's dive into why Stranger of Paradise is so awesome so far. Let's start out with the gameplay. The combat system feels like a nice mixture between the Souls games and the recent run of action-focused Final Fantasy titles. You have a set of regular attacks that you can do, along with other moves that take up MP and deal more damage. Along with this, there is a break gauge that you need to manage for both you and your enemies. When you block an attack, this will reduce your gauge, and if this is emptied, you will be stunned and vulnerable to a set of attacks, along with losing some of your max MP and buffs. Now as you damage and reduce your enemy's break gauge, this will put them into a stunned state. Once in this state, you can perform a takedown on an enemy and instantly kill them, even if they have a lot of health left. So while in combat, you are continually trying to stun your foes to effectively defeat them. Now blocking is one of your options for defense, but you can also use your soul shield. This is pretty interesting as that if you can get your timing right, you can earn MP back for an effective block. But there is a trade-off since you cannot hold down the soul shield forever, as it will slowly decrease your break gauge, meaning that you are now vulnerable to being stunned yourself. MP is your lifeblood for dealing a lot more damage and stunning enemies. Your basic attacks do get the job done, but using MP is your main means to hit harder and stun faster. Along with this, if an enemy is using one of its abilities, you can use the Soul Shield as it tries to hit you. You will then be able to use that ability yourself a few times. This is a fun mechanic that adds in an element of skill as you are rewarded for properly reading your enemies, and then being able to steal their moves and use them against them.
Ready for me.
It is important to note that some enemies will have weaknesses on different areas of their body, meaning if you attack them there, you'll do more damage and stun them quicker. There's other elements that factor into this as well, like the typical elemental weaknesses, along with hitting enemies into walls. If you have an attack that pushes an enemy back, this can cause them to hit a wall. That enemy will take a lot more damage. So positioning while in combat can be very important. Now like I mentioned before, once an enemy is stunned, you can perform a takedown on them, or as the game puts it, a soul burst, which will outright kill them. But there is a further incentive to stunning enemies and putting them in this state. Yes, it makes the combat situations easier to manage by focusing on this, but as you soul burst more enemies, you will increase your max MP for that level, along with recovering MP quicker. So at the start of the stage, you might start out with 2 bars of MP, but as you soul burst more enemies, you will greatly increase this, allowing you to pull off more moves when fighting harder enemies or the end area boss. Stranger of Paradise actively pushes the player to properly assess their foes, incentivizes you to stun as many of them as well, and you are rewarded for all of it. On top of this, these moves are flashy and pretty cool. Now in many ways, this is just scratching the surface of the combat system. There's room for further customization and personalization with what moves you can use, allowing you to develop your own string of unique combos. For example, if you're not attacking, you can have the MP skill button do one move. This will allow you to unleash a different move with the same MP skill button. You are paired with 2 AI companions, but your control of them is limited while in combat. While on a cooldown, you can activate your allies to unleash everything they have, helping you to stun more foes. From the impact to the sound effects, they are on par with what you would expect from the mainline series. The hits are satisfying, and the best of all of them are the Soul Burst takedowns, as all of them are presented in this flashy execution. Now, as you defeat enemies, you will earn experience points and level up your class or job that you have selected. What I love about this system is how it encourages the player to try out many jobs and potentially find new favorites. For example, you may select one class, and as you level it up, you will now unlock the option to equip a new class that has its own set of abilities and benefits. This is incredibly addicting since I found myself trying new classes and seeing if others would click with me more than others. In fact, I didn't really care for some of the classes that you start out with, but after a few hours I found myself enjoying the combat more because of the new class that I unlocked. All of this comes down to your preference and personal playstyle for tackling the game. So for anyone new to this game and you're liking parts of the combat but something isn't clicking yet, keep trying out new classes until you find something that fits a playstyle you like. Factoring into this is a loot system where you can equip a unique piece of equipment for every part of your body. So far, I've found the game provides a steady stream of new items to equip. When it comes to the combat system and progression, Stranger of Paradise does not disappoint. Now, I haven't completed the game yet, so I don't have a final opinion on the story, but what I have played so far, I can say that I'm enjoying it more and more. The initial cutscene is solid, but following this, the narrative feels a bit choppy and jumpy. Thankfully, after a few hours, the game hits a nice flow with its narrative, and as such, becomes more enjoyable. While I do not know much about the cast yet, I hope much of what I haven't experienced explores these characters further. There are some nice touches, like meeting a flamboyant pirate that is delightfully over the top and very entertaining. There are some odd moments like licensed music being used in some spots that feel out of place. I love Frank Sinatra, but it was a little odd how his music was used at the start. I have encountered a few flaws that I plan to explore more in my full review, but one that I wanted to touch on here is how Stranger of Paradise can feel like a lower budget game at times. It is really odd that while in combat and many of the story sequences, the game generally looks pretty good. But then there are these optional parts where you can talk to people in different towns, but instead of being within a space that you can explore, visit shops, and talk to people, it is all done through menus, and sometimes it's just done to deliver one line of dialogue. How this is done makes me think that the project did not have enough money to fully realize this area of the game. And it honestly isn't that bad. Yes, it could be presented better, but it's obvious that the developers put most of their money into the combat, progression, and story, which if you have a fixed amount of funds, focusing on the gameplay is the smartest move. Before we move to the conclusion, I want to highlight some of the soundtrack. I am really enjoying everything from the battle music to some of the calmer themes. Here are a few tracks from the game. I have spent about 15 hours with Stranger of Paradise, and I've only played a few of the missions, because I keep replaying everything because I'm enjoying the gameplay and progression a lot. I really had no idea what I was in for with this title. I found much of the early marketing to be a bit odd, and I wasn't really sold on it, even though I generally like this developer. But once I was able to spend some time with this title, it slowly hooked me, and I keep wanting to go back to it. One thing that I want to make note of is that this game does share some similarities to to the Souls games. But with it mixed in a lot of elements from the recent Final Fantasy titles, this feels like something that is all its own rather than just another Souls title. So outside of a few elements, I rarely thought I was really playing a Souls game. I know some gamers are not fans of the heavy difficulty that can come from a Souls title. And while Stranger of Paradise has a nice challenge, it offers difficulty options so that you can have a casual, moderate, or high level of challenge. If the rest of the game keeps up this pace, it might easily be one of my favorites this year. Give this one a try, and I plan on making a full review once I complete it. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links are at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.